Rolling.
Let's go, Buffalo.
Hey,
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 hey.
let's go Buffalo.
The Bills Mafia has to be psyched.
We are recording this before the wild card weekend. So January 8th, 2021. Go Buffalo. I'm excited for him.
Yeah, me too. Speaking of Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Bill himself was raiding the Capitol this week.
The guy from Arizona? Did you get his name?
Yeah, Jake Angeli, the QAnon shaman.
So as soon as I heard it was a QAnon shaman from Arizona, I instantly thought it was my sister's boyfriend.
Wait, she brought a boyfriend back with her?
He left early. I figured maybe he left to go free some QAnon people, some health and wellness stuff. I don't know. It's never.
He's breaking into the fucking White House.
For a moment there, I thought it was him.
Oh my God.
Just when I heard QAnon shaman.
Jesus Christ.
So I think most people are aware that the Capitol was under siege. This is the first time this has happened since the British. But I know of some other incidents. I think there were some Puerto Rican activists that went in and did an attempted assassination. So there's been incidents like this before where people have brought violence to the Capitol. Some people tried to compare this to the interruption of the Justice Kavanaugh meetings. And I know that proceedings and hearings are often interrupted by protesters, but this was different. I think there's one thing, it's breaking up a meeting versus breaking up a building. They treated the U.S. Capitol like a target, T.
Yeah. They went in there and they draped their shit all over the place. It was just a fucking horrific scene. How did they get in so easily?
It seems, because at this point now there are resignations from Capitol Police. And Capitol Police is not, it's like a mid-sized police department from a city level. And then they somehow were not prepared, even though, you know, as early as December 21st, they armed Trumpist militias would be rallying in D.C. Like this is something that they knew they were doing as they intended to delegitimize Joe Biden's victory. So this was known. They knew they were going to be armed. I always feel like the kid gloves come out for white militias compared to Black Lives Matter as an example. And that has been the big argument here, is that if this was Black Lives Matter, it would have been treated much differently.
Oh, absolutely. Nobody would have been allowed in the building. More people probably would have died. Can we talk about that? There's 5 people dead as a result of Donald Trump. And this is where the accountability needs to come in from Republicans and anybody that has supported him.
They're complicit.
Like, it's not so much about I told you so. It's just wake the fuck up and just condemn it and start doing the right thing.
There's always a tendency to go, well, the left does it too. They have Antifa or something along those lines. And I guess there's something to be said. This isn't a Target. We're not talking about a shoe store or an electronics store. We're talking about the U.S. Capitol, number one. And there was looting. to be fair. They looted that gift shop. They took all the postcards out of there. One guy took a podium. One guy's taking a dump in Nancy Pelosi's office for sure. People stealing all types of stuff. But the incendiary rhetoric, the lack of decency in that rhetoric, this whole notion that these are comparable, they're not. The Republican side is always more amped up, has been, with Rush Limbaugh at the helm, with the shock jocks, the Bruce Savage. What the hell's his name?
I just like that you called him the Savage.
Well, that's his last name, right? These shock jock personalities. This is post-Reagan's kind of let's get rid of the fairness doctrine, and you see radio stations being purchased largely to promote right-wing ideals. And again, this is nothing new because this is the John Birch Society. There has been an active effort to create public think tanks that would move policy in a direction of limited and often anti-government and more towards kind of the Ayn Rand utopia, capitalist utopia, where labor gets exploited. And so they've been pushing back with this idea that socialism is a bad thing, always comparing it to Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, and so forth, not understanding that we can obviously do better. But as a result of all this, in this fight for that, you've created now a group of domestic violent extremists who are on the FBI's top threat list. This is under this current Trump administration, where they have determined that the greatest threat we face domestically is from racially, ethnically motivated violent extremists, RMVEs. And since 2001, since 9/11, the most lethal of all are these domestic extremists. And they're fervently anti-government. And you saw that on display. These people have massive weaponries, lots of arms, lots of tactical gear. There was a vehicle that had some Molotov cocktails. There's been blueprints as far as attacking the Inauguration Day on January 20th. So there's a serious thing happening here. Former governor of Arizona, when she was Department of Homeland Security chief under President Obama, Janet Napolitano, went to Congress and talked about this exact thing, this homegrown terrorist thing. These guys that are threatening to kidnap governors in Michigan. These militia groups coming out and going to Walmarts and shooting Mexicans or these types of things. And it's ignored. It's like we don't want to upset at our core who our base is. And at the base of the Republican Party are these violent extremists, these violent white extremists. And the Proud Boys, for some reason, get to be the poster child, which frustrates me to no end. Because that they're not even – the Ku Klux Klan has been in operation since post-Civil War and has continued to operate unfettered. And they've been suppressing votes since that time, making sure that people can't vote and were afraid to vote, and making sure that polls didn't have adequate resources so people could vote like they did in 2004 in Ohio. And so this whole notion that you're disputing an election fraud, even though there's no evidence of fraud, but there's clear evidence of voter suppression. But then again, that's perpetuated and perpetrated by, again, conservative groups. And so they've been doing this for a while. Anything they can do to limit people from voting, they will. And so that's the real fraud. And the fact that people have bought into this lie and decided that it was okay to attack the Capitol based on a president who has consistently lied over 20,000 times and will continue to lie so much that we got to take the nuke codes away and ban him from Twitter.
What if he got impeached in his last week?
So when I brought this up, people instantly roll their eyes and say there's no point to this. But the United States Congress has a set of rules that they play by, and there has to be consequences for action. So if you incite a riot to go attack the Capitol, you should be punished for that. And so just because he has, at this point now, we're looking at 11 days. And by the time this publishes, we'll be, a few shorter than that. But he has to be held accountable. When we talk about this idea of being personally accountable, someone has to be held to account, not just him, but others. And it appears at this point, a lot of Republicans are on board, but maybe it's too little too late. I do find Hope Hicks leaving or Betsy DeVos leaving, all these people saying, you know what, I'm out of Elaine Chao was like, come on, you're just doing what Mitch McConnell finally, said something. I was really proud of Mitch actually for saying something for once. I hadn't been that proud of Mitch since his days at WBLM radio. Little City Slickers nod there. Obscure reference.
Wait, hang on. What was the call sign? W what?
WBLM radio.
Black Lives Matter?
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, there's the connection. He definitely was not a submarine commander.
Oh my God.
No, little Jake Gyllenhaal is in the classroom, is introducing his dad, played by Billy Crystal, who's Mitch. And he tries to say he's a submarine commander because he's ashamed of his work at WBLM radio, where he sells advertising. He sells time. And this is prefaced by the construction worker that goes on right before him that gives one of the greatest stories about lifting a ball break, lifting a big concrete ball that fell on a woman's legs. Classic scene. But either it's Mitch. So Mitch, God, man, the man, he has a penance for obstruction. And this was clearly on display in his effort to ensure Merrick Garland did not get a vote as Obama nominated him to the Supreme Court.
Fuck his turtle ass.
But they're good at it. Like I gotta give the Republicans respect. Like when it comes to playing this game, they're fucking dirty. They'll suppress votes, and they'll be part of a violent mob, and then they'll kneel down and be like, "Oh, we're praying. We're harmless here."
Yeah, we're onto your bullshit.
The voter intimidation thing, I've personally experienced this here in Arizona. Being at the polls, I was met by people who were trying to persuade me in an aggressive way to vote for the Jim Wires, Linda Gray, and Doug Quellen team in what was then District 10 here in Arizona. And when I didn't receive that invitation well, this person proceeded to take pictures of me or take pictures of my car and just flat out just like, hey, we're watching you. I'm going to put you on the list, right? No different than that school board incident that I referred to in a previous episode. We were called out for being at the school board. They don't like you meddling in their shit. They love their power. And if they can keep control of it, they will do everything they can to do so, including pressuring legislatures and governors of states to overturn the election results. Even though there's been no fraud found in all of these states, they've had like over 60 lawsuits going to the court and saying, hey, there's fraud. And then they'll hold these press conferences, these circus press conferences, where they make up a whole bunch of shit. But as soon as they appear before a judge, you can't lie in front of a judge. And so that's why they have no evidence to support fraud. But people enjoy the Giuliani circus. And they'll listen to this bullshit and be like, yeah, this is absolutely true. And the rhetoric is so good. Their PR machine is so good. Then I start to hear my friends say this shit.
They're good at making memes.
Taxes. They're great.
That's what they're fucking. That's what they're
the
good
best.
At. Making memes. Giuliani fucking leaking oil, showing up at the Four Seasons. Like, what the fuck?
You know what's great about that Four Seasons is they've now seen an increase in sales, and they've come up with T-shirts, all types of things.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
they got a Trash Rocket shirt.
They don't, but they have the right idea. We need to be doing what they're doing. Trash Rocket shirts coming out 2021.
I've actually tapped an artist, and you know this artist personally, And I've read some of this artist's rhetoric lately on their social media. And there's a continuous effort to justify what happened as storming the Capitol as justifiable. I don't understand why we can't all just agree that this is wrong.
We're going to have to tap some other artists.
Well, I haven't gotten any renderings, and most of the renderings I've received were shit.
Oh, no.
But we're on a budget, right? And so there's so many other artists out there.
Well, I threw that one up on social media. It's a start.
If you're an artist, I think there's some people out there who'd be willing to help us.
Oh, yeah. I was just giving them a rough draft, the kind of the perspective that we should be aiming for.
But none of this is new. They've been changing the rhetoric around global warming, making it climate change, or the estate tax, calling it the death tax. Like, they're very good rhetorically at spinning shit and making it sound wonderful. Taxes are bad and regulations are bad. And so I guess people just don't want clean water or clean air, and they don't want services. They don't understand that things cost money and taxes equal those services. But it's the violent rhetoric that continues to get pushed. One example, Kelly Ward, who is the Republican chair here in the state of Arizona, still, justifying these actions, and the entire Arizona congressional delegation, the Republican delegation, Debbie Lesko, Paul Gosar, all of them, David Schweikert, all of them voted that the results of the election were invalid. So that nothing's new there. But Gabrielle Giffords was a congresswoman from Tucson, Arizona, who was shot in the head at a Safeway in 2010 or 11, I forget when. But there was an effort made by the GOP here in Arizona to they use bullseyes and targets as part of their rhetoric that, we need to focus in on her, and used this using guns as part of we're going to target you. And then so happens some nut job, Jared Loeffner, shoots her in the head. He's locked up in Kansas somewhere. We've never heard from him since. And so I don't think the rhetoric is the same on both sides. I think there's a clearly violent trend. And we saw that play out. And again, over a bag of lies. And I think that's the frustrating part, is that these people can be motivated to go attack a pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. because they think there's some pedo ring. And so the QAnon Buffalo Bill, coming back to our man, these people have been completely misguided. They clearly don't understand that people are being trafficked all the time. And often those are the results of poor home conditions, runaways, or parents not accepting their child because they're gay, these types of things. And no desire to help or change any of that, or get involved in the broken adoption system we have in this country, where majority of people who don't get adopted end up in jail or homeless or just dejected, rejected, treated like they're infected, just not.
They're not as lucky as Aaron is in The Office.
By the way, The Office has new clips, extended episodes, all of that on Peacock. I don't know if you saw or heard this.
Yes, I've heard. I'm not getting sucked in. I did get you an Office-related gift, though, for next time I see you.
Uh-oh. I was going to give you a subscription to Pornhub, but I don't know anymore if it's any worth it, because they've just banned President Trump from that platform as well. So he's getting banned all over the place.
Oh.
But they're complaining about, they want to incite violence, and when you're using speech has limitations. And so people are getting upset that they're banning speech on Twitter, Facebook, even Parler, an off-brand of Twitter, has been, now Google's trying to hold them to account for, again, the rhetoric. So you can't use these mediums to incite violence. So again, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. And that's what Twitter and Parler have become. They've become the theater. And if you're going to go in there and yell fire and get people to go and revolt and kill people, that's not okay. Very comparable to a case as the Anti-Defamation League. And I'm going to tie this all together back to our wonderful state of Georgia, who recently came through. But Tom Metzger was a white nationalist who used his inflammatory rhetoric to spread hate and ultimately influenced people to hate and carry out a killing in 1988 of a African immigrant, Mulugeta Sarah, probably butchering the name. But regardless, this happened in Portland. And Tom Metzger was found guilty and held to account for his rhetoric that he promoted. And so people need to understand that you can't just go out and say things willy-nilly, and that even burning a cross in someone's yard is a symbol and a representation and a perceived threat. And so what's ironic here is the Anti-Defamation League was an organization founded in the state of Georgia purposely to prevent anti-Semitism against Jews. And Georgia recently elected John Ossoff, the first Jewish Georgia senator that I know of. And then, of course, Pastor Warnock, who is the first African-American senator from Georgia, and also a pastor at the Ebenezer Church where Martin Luther King used to practice. What's interesting about all this is that more of the bullshit rhetoric, they tried to paint this Warnock guy as like he's Reverend Jeremiah Wright in Chicago, who was Obama's pastor. Everybody got upset about him because he said, "God damn America." And so we're proud of you, Georgia. You've given the Senate a 50-50 split with Kamala Harris to be the deciding vote. And in a short week's time, pending a coup by a bunch of racially, ethnically motivated, violent extremists who, again, the FBI have determined to be the most lethal threat we have are domestic extremists in this country. And so that needs to be mentioned. That needs to be noted. You need to know that.
Noted. Before we wrap things up, I'm just going to play devil's advocate real quick. What if the government falls into tyranny and revolution is necessary?
I've thought about that.
There's going to be calls for rioting against places such as the Capitol and things like that, similar to what you saw yesterday. And
no, if everything collapses and we lose all this, like, I think America is an experiment. It's been working well, considering. I don't think people understand what we have, and maybe people are shocked by what's happening, but they're obviously not reading history books because this is nothing new. None of this is new. You're just not paying attention.
I agree.
But if all collapses, I'm going to be a sex worker. That's the reality. Like, I can't fucking swing a shovel. You've seen me. Like, I'm useless labor-wise. I'm probably just going to have to be someone's sex slave at that point.
I'm just saying.
I have no value.
All I'm saying is that there would be calls for acts that were similar to what we saw this week. And I'm sure that violence would come as a result of those calls. And then we look hypocritical, right?
The whole world is watching. Make no mistake, everybody in the world saw what happened, but they've been watching us for a long time. And that's partly because we control most of the media, and we end up influencing their lives with television, like Guiding Light or Days of Our Lives or Falcon Crest or some shit like that, along with, McDonald's, Taco Bell, and Kentucky Fried Chicken and Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and tobacco. Like our globalization reach, we've tapped into every market possible. So America as a brand is everywhere. So everybody's aware of us. We're not aware of what's going on in their country, which is kind of despicable.
Correct. All I'm saying is that we would be viewed as hypocritical if things were ever to get to that state and people were calling for a revolution against the government. Because we're saying that we don't want to incite violence or anything like that, but in a situation like that, would that not be inciting violence?
And hypocritically, the United States has supported the overthrow of democratically elected governments. I mentioned Chile on one of our previous podcasts. Recently in Egypt, they were perfectly okay with removing the democratically elected prime minister there.
Yes.
President?
So
prime minister?
What the fuck?
It doesn't matter. Like it's all about what benefits us from a free market point of view.
It's a fucking joke. That's all it is.
We're in a capitalist metropolis.
Just like fucking Buffalo Bill.
And it all comes back to Buffalo Bill? Yes.
And the Buffalo Bills. I'll be rooting for them against the Colts. This episode is going to air after that. So if they have won, keep on rolling, Buffalo. We're rooting for you. If you have any feedback for us regarding this episode, please feel free to interact with us on Twitter at CTSTerry. You may also find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast. Safe. As long as the world doesn't fall apart before next week, we will talk then.
We're going to be okay. And we got NFL playoffs this week. And as long as capitalism keeps rolling, so will we.
That's right. Have a good week, everybody. And keep trying to catch the sky.